Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin Bravo Rose. I am a third-year PhD candidate in the Department of Biological Sciences, and I am a graduate writing fellow with the Graduate and Postdoctoral Writing Center.
Hi, my name is Candice D'Souza, and I'm a first-year PhD student in Counselor Education and Supervision at the Cato College of Education, and I work with Caitlin as a doctoral writing fellow.
Today, Candice and I will be going over the abstract workshop for the Graduate Research Symposium that'll be happening in 2024. And this workshop is sponsored by both the Graduate and Postdoctoral Writing Center, as well as the Center for Graduate Life and Learning. So the 2024 Graduate Research Symposium is hosted by GPSG, which is our Graduate and Professional Student Government. So there are multiple awards available for both oral presentations and poster presentations, and our applications are open until December 24th. If you win within your particular section, there are monetary awards up to $500 for oral presentations and $250 for poster presentations. And so this event is sponsored by GPSG and supported by the CGLL, University of Charlotte, and the Division of Research. So for this presentation, we will be going over the criteria for GRS abstracts and providing some examples throughout as to how to write a successful abstract for the GRS. And so first, we want to start with the evaluation criteria for these abstracts.
So a well-written abstract should answer some key questions about your research. The first of them is, why is your research really important? What is the gap that it is trying to fill, and what is the significance it will hold? What question or problem are you specifically trying to answer? What is the focal point of your research that hasn't been addressed before, that your research is looking to fill the gap of? How are you conducting your research? That's nothing but your methodology. How did you conduct it, or how are you planning to conduct it? This could include surveys, this could include experimental methodology, etc. And that needs to be mentioned in your abstract. Finally, what are the main findings of your work? What is it that you found out after conducting your research? And if your research is in the process or hasn't been started yet in terms of the execution, you might want to write what your expected findings or expected outcomes are, so that you answer approximately what is it that you hope to find or hypothesize to encounter after your research is done. And how does this work build into the larger existing body of knowledge? So there must be a knowledge base in your field upon which you built your research. So this work that you are doing, how does that build into or have additive value towards the existing body of literature in your field? The introduction. So the introduction is primarily the background of the topic that you're studying and why is your research important.
So throughout this process, Candice is going to introduce each section of an abstract, and I'll be providing an example from my personal abstract that was submitted for the 2023 GRS Symposium, for the 2023 Graduate Research Symposium that was accepted and presented. So the circutidal clock is attributed to the cyclic and rhythmic behaviors of intertidal organisms, providing adaptive advantages to synchronize activity to the tide, and entrainment of this clock during development is necessary for successful larval transport. However, how this clock is entrained is unknown. And so with this statement, I'm setting the tone for my research and kind of putting it in the broader context of the field. And this bolded section is identifying the area of importance within my research.
The research problem is essentially a clear statement of your research problem, the statement of purpose, and the hypothesis of what you intend to find, and or the research question. So the research question is nothing but the hypothesis put in a question format in most fields. And putting this in your abstract will really give the reader context into what is it that you're looking to find and what the paper seeks to address, or what the poster seeks to address.
And so For my abstract, I said, here we seek to identify and describe the mechanisms underlying the circadial clock by identifying circadial clock gene expression in embryos and larvae to determine if gene regulation is synchronized to a tidal cycle. And so there in bold, that's my statement of purpose. So I'm stating exactly what I hope to identify and describe within this particular field of research. And so when you're writing this section, you could either do like I did and just make a statement. You could say, I hypothesize that these genes will differentially express, or however that fits your particular research. Or you could pose it as a question to clearly identify it for your reader.
The next is addressing your methodology. So in a sentence or two, you have to mention how you plan to conduct the research that your research problem requires to be understood better, and how you're planning to collect your data and analyze your data, especially if it's a statistical analysis that you're using, what kind of statistics, etc. So how did you do what you did, or how are you planning to get answers to the research problem that you've stated?
So for my research, we performed tag-seq and gene expression analyses using embryos 72 hours pre-hatching to larvae 48-hour post-hatching from different tidal periods. And so here I'm writing in the past tense saying this is something that I've already done, but if it's a research project you are intending to perform, you can say, we will perform X, Y, Z, and analyze our data this way.
The results section is nothing but a summary of your research findings. This could include, numerical data as well, in terms of stating what your outcome variables were, your p-values were, etc., and what were the main findings of your work. It's okay if this is a little more technical in the way you express it. That varies by the field that you're in.
So for myself, we observed 1,933 differentially expressed genes in embryos 24 hours before hatching, and a maximum of 466 differentially expressed genes at both 24 and 40 hours post-hatch. And so here I'm using the exact number of genes that we identified as showing differential expression to really drive home the impact of the research that I've conducted. Again, if you're writing your methodology in a future tense, here you can do the same thing as well and talk about what you expect your results to be. So you can say, we expect to observe differential gene expression during different times of the day that align with this particular cycle or this particular behavior, so on and so forth.
The conclusion is essentially future implications or significance of your research. How does this work build into existing knowledge, and what are the future directions in which a researcher in the future who may take interest in your work and want to, explore it from a different lens, or want to take that research forward, what are the directions in which they can go, and what are the implications for the field at large from your study?
So for me, elucidation of the molecular mechanisms of the circadial clock is key to understanding the tidally timed behaviors in all stages of the fiddler crab's life cycle, as well as in other key species that live in intertidal areas. And so here I'm clearly identifying how my work is building into that larger body of knowledge by saying, understanding these mechanisms help us understand these behaviors. And so this will help build into the literature and help fill a gap.
For the purpose of a good abstract, one of the key criteria is also the language that you use, which the point of a well-written, good, engaging abstract is that it has to be clear and it has to be accessible to a reader who may or may not be from the same discipline. So while we understand that each field may have a certain level of technicality in the language that is used. So for example, Caitlin comes from biology. So her research is very, very focused on technicalities of the terms used in biology, but it avoids jargon in the sense that even for an interdisciplinary reader, it can make sense, except maybe perhaps the specifics of the statistics. The rest of it should be understandable to an interdisciplinary reader who may be uninitiated in your field or in your particular topic of research.
And here I would like to say, as someone that's previously participated in the GRS, your judges that you're going to receive may not necessarily be in your specific field or even in your specific department. So you want to make sure while you're developing this abstract to understand that you're going to be presenting this to an audience that may not be familiar with your research or your particular field. So start now in developing that clear and accessible language for everyone that will engage in your research. So an example of, catering your language to more non-specialist audiences. So this is a particular methodology piece from my PhD proposal. So actigrams will be analyzed for periodicity using autocorrelation analysis and maximum entropy spectral analysis. So there's a bunch of jargon that's used there, such as the phrase actigrams, autocorrelation analysis, and the meta-analysis. And so what we can do is we can break this down to be more simple for more audiences to be able to understand. So activity records, or actigrams, of pumping behavior will be produced. Then peaks in activity will be compared to the times of high and low tide to identify synchrony of behavior with the tidal cycle. The message is the same for both, but the one on the left is more for a specific audience within my particular field that understands that language, whereas the one on the right is more for a non-specialist audience and the people I may be interacting with at GRS.
One of the other key criteria is the cohesion and coherence of your abstract. So in the sense that when we say cohesion, we mean that it has to be tied in together well. So it has to have a logical, well organized flow with a clear beginning, middle, and end. So if you noticed, the elements of the abstract that we were talking about are essentially all the elements of your, if it were a research paper. So it has the problem statement, the methodology, the findings, the implications. So it has to go in exactly that cohesive, coherent flow so that it makes logical sense to a reader about the introduction, the body, and the final conclusion of your abstract.
So one way that we recommend doing this is kind of this hourglass model. So basically what you do is you start broad, get more specific, and then you get broad again throughout the abstract. So what I mean by that is you're starting with something that everyone cares about. So find a hook that can bring in your audience to find your research interesting. From there, you'll explain why we need to know more about that particular topic, and then explain what you're going to be doing within that project. That's where you get particularly specific. From there, you're going to get broad again and begin to describe your key results and what those results mean in the context of this particular field. And then finally, you'll explain how your project will contribute to something that everyone cares about. So again, you're going to tie it back into that introduction where you identify what people care about. And so here, this is an example of an abstract that we pulled to kind of highlight different areas of this abstract in order to show how you can effectively use your language to make an effective statement. And so as you can see here, this first sentence, how does one prove a claim about a highly sensitive object, such as a nuclear weapon, without revealing information about the object? This is the motivating background. So this is something everyone in your audience will care about. And so from there, they move into their problem statement and their knowledge gap by saying this paradox has challenged nuclear arms control for more than 5 decades. Then they'll kind of go into what they're going to do to solve this problem. So they're presenting a mechanism in the form of an interactive proof system that can validate the structure and composition of an object, such as a nuclear warhead, to arbitrary precision without revealing either its structure or composition. From there, they go into their results. So we introduce a tomographic method that simultaneously resolves both the geometric and isotopic makeup of an object. We also introduce a method of protecting information using a provably secure cryptographic hash that does not rely on electronics or software. And lastly, they round out this abstract with the implications of their research. And so this is the trying to answer, so what and now what? These techniques, when combined with a suitable protocol, constitute an interactive proof system that could reject hoax items and clear authentic warheads with excellent sensitivity and reasonably short measurement times. And I encourage you when you're working on your abstract, color code things. I think it really helps you understand if you're hitting each point of the abstract when it's color coded with the question that you're trying to answer.
So some of the submission requirements that we just wanted to reiterate are that the title should have a clear description of the topic. The length has to be 500 or fewer words. This is a significant increase from previous years. So we trust that you'll have the luxury of space to write a good abstract. You need to enlist 3 to 5 keywords. And yes, it's you on Christmas Eve.
So as you work on your abstract, we encourage you to, go through a peer review process. So share it with your classmates, share it with your advisor, share it with your siblings, anyone that you're comfortable with, having read that abstract. You can also come to the Graduate and Postdoctoral Writing Center in order to get feedback on that abstract and throughout this process. The more people that you have read your abstract, the more eyes you get on it, and the better your abstract will be by the end of it, and you'll understand that it can apply to broad audiences. We also encourage you to finish revising and editing your abstract at least 24 hours before the deadline so that you have that peace of mind that it's been submitted. Over here is a QR code where you can book an appointment with Candace or myself in the Graduate and Postdoctoral Writing Center. We would like to thank Dr. Lisa Russell Pinson and Dr. Katie Garahan because they are the faculty consultants of the Graduate and Postdoctoral Writing Center. Myself and Candace contributed to this workshop by helping create it and doing this presentation. And we would like to thank the Graduate Life Fellows, Erin Nance and Ruth Wright, for their contributions throughout. Lastly, we would like to thank the Center for Graduate Life and Learning and the Graduate and Professional Student Government for hosting this symposium and for their support throughout this process.